What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Over the last several weeks, Banner of War has become an extremely popular Strand build with Titans, and rightfully so. Banner of War, in combination with the Synthoceps, has given Titans yet another overpowered build that dominates in nearly every single aspect of Destiny 2 right now. But even with as popular as this build has become, I continue to see countless Titans running this build completely wrong in Greymasters, raids, dungeons, and activities of all levels. So today we're going to be breaking down this War Banner Titan build and identifying the key elements that you need to focus on when you carry that prestigious and powerful Banner of War. Banner of War has provided Titans with one of the most unique and powerful builds that's ever been crafted, and what sets this build apart from others is that it provides significant benefits to not only you, but to fellow teammates as well. When Banner of War is equipped, you'll gain a bonus in health and outgoing damage after defeating an enemy with a sword, a melee, a glaive melee, a super, or a finisher. Once triggered, Banner of War creates a field around you, spanning 10 meters in radius. This banner will remain up for 15 seconds, but by defeating additional enemies, you'll gain up to 4 stacks of Banner of War. That's going to extend the uptime to 30 seconds. To all teammates that are within this pulsating field, 20 points of health will be restored every 2.5 seconds. But each time you gain an additional stack of Banner of War, the time between pulses will be reduced, providing that 20 points of health as often as every second. It might not seem like a big difference, but having 20 points of health coming back every second as opposed to every 2.5 is paramount when your enemies can hit as hard as they do in in-game activities. While Banner of War is active, you will receive a 40% increase to all melee damage, 25% increase towards glaive melee damage, and 10% increased damage with swords. What's most crucial about this bonus in damage is that it will stack with other bonuses like weapon surges and activity modifiers, Well of Radiance, and weapon perks like 1-2 punch, trench barrel, golden tricorn, and others. When you take on the duties of the War Banner, you are embracing the persona of a tank, so you have to commit to a highly aggressive playstyle that will keep you up close and personal to every enemy you face up against, even if that enemy is a giant, unstoppable ogre. This means that when you're in the middle of battle, your primary focus needs to be the use of your abilities, along with select weapon types that will keep your abilities charged and amplified. Failure to live up to this level of playstyle will result in Banner of War not performing at its maximum efficiency, which is going to result in the banner going away sooner and more often. So before you head into battle, you need to be sure you are setting yourself up for success by applying the right fragment combinations, the right armor mods, and the right weapon loadouts, so that when you do carry that Banner of War, you will be triumphant in doing so. Like I mentioned before, the Synthoceps are absolutely incredible, and they synergize with every subclass, but none quite like they do with Strand. The Synthoceps give your melee attacks the benefits of surrounded, so when 3 or more enemies are within 10 meters, you're getting a 200% increase to all melee damage, and 50% increased super and glaive damage. And in case you're wondering, the bonus in damage provided by the Synthoceps will stack on top of the bonus that Banner of War provides. Strand actually offers the most opportunity to trigger this bonus, since you'll have 3 charged melees to use, a grapple melee and a super that features a barrage of melee attacks. The combination of Banner of War and Synthoceps can serve as an extremely formidable option in most every DPS situation, but there are a few boss encounters out there that don't really call for the use of Synthoceps. So when this does occur, my advice is to make a quick and easy swap over to the ACD feedbacks. This way you can still utilize the aggressive nature of Banner of War, while also receiving up to an 80% melee damage resistance bonus, along with an explosive burst of arc energy that will apply jolt to the boss as well. Every time you land a melee strike, an armor charge is going to be granted, and when an enemy hits you with a melee attack, those armor charges will be consumed, triggering an arc blast that deals an incremental amount of damage based on how many armor charges are being consumed. The ACD feedback can really be a great exotic to use in general, but much of this build's power derives from the use of the Synthoceps, so you should only ever swap off if it's one of those specific boss situations that render the Synthoceps useless. To complement the use of Banner of War, we are using Into the Fray as our second aspect. This will grant Woven Mail to you and nearby allies when destroying tangles. You'll also receive a burst of 10 points in health, and while Woven Mail is active, you'll gain a bonus of 400% to the rate of your melee regeneration. Melee and grapple regeneration continue to be our primary focus when it comes to Strand Fragments. Having these abilities more often is going to make it a lot easier for you to be up close and personal to those enemies in in-game activities. So we are using Thread of Generation. This grants a small amount of grenade energy as we deal damage, allowing us to have our grapple melee much more often. Thread of Fury will help provide additional melee energy whenever we strike an enemy with a tangle. This will provide 10% on Tier 1 rank and file enemies, and upwards of 30% on high-ranking Tier 4 enemies. When you're taking on the role of a tank, you're going to get hit a lot, and even though we'll have Woven Mail thanks to Into the Fray, that Woven Mail is going to need to be re-triggered as often as possible. So we are using Thread of Warding so that when we collect orbs, Woven Mail will get reactivated. When you're playing at an aggressive, high-paced rate, the last thing you want to do is manually reload a weapon. So we have Thread of Ascent going, which is going to automatically reload our equipped weapon whenever we activate our grenade. And when it comes to our choice in weapons, we need to be rather selective because our main focus is ability use, not weapon use. A debate could be made on whether running double special is still a smart thing to do, but at least at this particular moment, with this particular build, I say it is definitely the smart thing to do. This is largely in part due to the Seasons Artifact mod, called Elemental Munitions, which provide ammo after defeating enemies with a tangle. This and Monochromatic Maestro have really helped this build out this season, but there will be other mods next season that provide similar benefits, if not better. Even without the advantages of Elemental Munitions, there are armor mods like Special and Heavy Ammo Finder and Scavenger that could help facilitate a double special loadout. But the key element in running double special weapons with this build is that we are predominantly going to be attacking enemies with our melee and our other abilities. And when we do use our weapons, they need to be nail drivers because we're going to be in the thick of things. This is why we need to have at least one shotgun equipped with 1-2 punch. There's quite a few out there, but the one that I would recommend above all would be the Swordbreaker, which drops from Crota's End. 1-2 punch will be an essential element of this build, since hitting an enemy with every pellet of your shotgun will grant 40% increased damage on charged melee attacks, and 100% increased damage on non-charged melee attacks. This stacks with both Synthoceps and Banner of War, and it's going to give you the extra leverage needed to be able to instantly melt some of the toughest champions and bosses out there. Trench Barrel is another standout shotgun perk that boosts the damage of your shotgun by 50% on your next 3 shots after hitting an enemy with a melee. Grave Robber, Heel Clip, Surrounded, Close to Melee, Pugilist, and Demolitionist are some other top tier perks to have on your equipped weapons to maximize your lethality. Stepping outside of the double special spectrum for a moment, the Monte Carlo and Traveler's Chosen are both primary exotics that are designed to regenerate ability energy and will both perform very well with this build. But ideally, we would like to keep our exotic in the heavy slot, where we have options of Tractor Cannon, which can really be a lifesaver when you're able to disrupt and debuff your enemies by 30%. There's also the Legend of Acreus, the Winterbite Glaive, the Lament, and several other exotic swords that will greatly benefit from the effects of Banner of War. Since this build is structured around an aggressive playstyle, there's a few other exotics that can really give you an extra advantage while you're focusing on a melee shotgun combo. The Anarchy allows you to drop down several arc traps that chain damage to nearby enemies over an extended time, something you can also achieve with the use of the Wither Horde. And there's also the Parasite, which gives you a massively overpowered one-shot grenade that will flat out melt champions, tormentors, bosses, and damn near everything else, allowing you to seamlessly transition right back into your shotgun melee combo. When it comes to this build's armor, the main stats to focus on are resilience, so that we can stay alive longer, strength, so our melee charges quicker, and recovery, so our health comes back faster. As far as the armor mods go, our main focus is providing as much bonus energy towards our abilities as possible. Starting with helmets, we're using multiple hands-on mods, which will grant extra super energy whenever we defeat enemies with a melee. And on our gloves, we're utilizing heavy-handed, so that we create orbs when defeating enemies with a charged melee attack. This will also count enemies defeated by our grapple melee, and these orbs are going to provide us with woven mail. We're also using melee kickstart, so that when our melee energy is completely consumed, our armor charges will get converted into melee energy. But since we're using the grapple melee as well, grenade kickstart could be equally effective. Since we are going to take a lot of hits, and most of it's coming from close range, having melee resistance and concussive dampener on our chest armor will be imperative. Otherwise, charged up will give us an extra armor charge slot that can be consumed to go towards our melee or grenade energy. On our boots, we're going with recuperation to get health instantly restored when collecting an orb, and with invigoration, we'll also get 10% bonus melee energy whenever collecting an orb. Since we're not as focused on weapon damage, we're going to be using Absolution, so that we'll get a small amount of energy applied to all of our abilities whenever collecting an orb. And to wrap things up with our armor choices, we're using Outreach on our class item, so that we'll get extra melee energy when casting our barricade. Since the recovery of my character's armor was low, I have opted to go with Font of Restoration, which is providing me with an extra 50 points of recovery, while armor charges are active. If your recovery is up to par, I would recommend going with Distribution, so that you'll gain bonus energy to all abilities whenever casting a barricade near enemies. So between our choices in armor mods, weapons, and our Strand class tree, we should have the ability to play super aggressive at even Master and Grandmaster level content, thanks to this build's insane levels of health and ability regeneration, on top of the massive bonuses and damage. But to see this build truly succeed, you have to commit to up-close engagements, and to trust in the abilities of the Banner of War, this build, and yourself. And with that, we've covered all of the key components to this amazing, overpowered Titan build, and how you can maximize your efficiency when using it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this build, and what weapons you've found to pair up with it the best. Let us know down in the comments below, and let me know what you're looking forward to out of Season 23. Thank you for checking out today's video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran who's been around for a while and just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And if you'd like to duplicate today's build, you can also find a Destiny item manager link in the description as well. But that's going to wrap things up for today's video. This has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.